If I ask you to count something, how will you start counting? You will always start with 1, right? If I ask you how many letters do you see in this word number, so how will you count? You will start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So these are natural numbers. These are counting numbers. We use these numbers for counting. So it always starts with 1, 1, 2, 3, and goes on forever, right? Next we have integers. Integers are those numbers in which decimal part is not important. I mean, if I write some number, let's say 1, so 1 has no decimal part, right? If I write as minus 7, minus 7.5, let's say, the, after decimal I have written 5, so it's important, right? It's like 7 rupees 5 paise or $7 5 cents. So this decimal part is important here, right? So this it's not integer, it's not an integer, because here we have decimal part. So if I remove this decimal part, if I write it as 7 and with no decimal parts, then we will say it as integers. So it doesn't matter if I write 7 as with negative sign or 7 as with a positive sign, with a plus sign, it will always be an integer, right? So integers can be 0, 1, 2, 3, right? It goes on forever, and with also with negative parts like -1, -2, -3, these all are integers. The important thing is it doesn't have any decimal part, right? So these numbers are alone and without any decimal part, so we say it as integers. Next we have whole numbers. So whole numbers will always start with 0, right? As natural numbers we know starts with 1. These are counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. In whole numbers we start it as with 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, and it goes on forever, right? The difference between natural numbers and whole numbers is whole number have 0 and natural number starts with 1, right? The trick here to remember this is, you see whole, if I remove this w, so we will have whole, HOLE. So 0 has whole, right? We can put something in it, so it's like 0 has a whole, so we can remember it. Whole numbers always start with 0 because whole contains the word whole, HOLE, right? So you can see it as OE as 0, so it starts with 0, right? Next we have prime numbers. So I have written here some numbers. So how many numbers do you think can divide this 8? How many numbers are there which can divide this number 8? So 2 can divide 8, right? 2 4s are 8. 2 times 4 is always 8. 4 can divide 8, right? 4 times 2 is 8. And 8 can also divide 8, right? 8 ones are 8, right? And 1 is also there. 1 can also always divide every number, right? So 1 can divide 8, 2 can divide 8, 4 can divide 8, 8 can divide 8. So there are 4 numbers which can divide 8. Similarly for 6 we have 1 can divide 6, 2 can divide 6, 3 can divide 6, and 6 can divide 6. For 5, 1 can divide 5, 5 can divide 5, right? 4, 1 can divide 4, 2 can divide 4, and 4 can divide 4. 1 can divide 3, 3 can divide 3. 1 can divide 2, and 2 can divide 2, right? Now let's focus on these numbers 5, 3, and 2. So what do you see? There are only 2 numbers which can divide 5, right? 1 and 5. There are only 2 numbers which can divide 3, 1 and 3. Similarly for 2, there are only 2 numbers which can divide 2. So we say these numbers are as prime numbers because there are only 2 numbers which can divide those numbers. So prime numbers can only be divided by 1 or by itself, right? So 5 is a prime number because only 1 and 5, only 1 and itself can divide it. Similarly for 3, only 1 and 3 can divide 3. So these are some examples of prime numbers: 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 15, and so on, right? Sorry, 15 is not, 17 will be there. 17 is a prime number. And the numbers which can divided by more than 2 numbers, 1, 2, if 4 numbers can divide 8, 4 numbers can divide 6, 3 numbers can divide 4. If there are more than 2 numbers, then we say these numbers as composite numbers. So in this example, 8, 6, 4 are composite numbers, right? So because more than 2 numbers can divide these numbers, so these are composite numbers.